from Congressman Darrell Issa blaming President Obama for cancelling the White House tours. Now been shut down for 18 days. The president says because of budget cuts, and it's not his fault. Well, let's see about that. We'll bring in my all-star panel, Abby Huntsman, host of HuffPost Live, and conservative radio host Ben Ferguson, and Marjorie Clifton, who is the founder of SpikeTheWaterCooler.com. Welcome to you all. Let me start with you, Ben Ferguson. I imagine you're foaming at the mouth about this. So I find it completely baffling, I must say. It costs $74,000 a week to let these White House tours go on. 11,000 Americans, mainly Americans, go through the doors and see the home that basically belongs to the American people. What do you make of this?
Yeah. Well, I think this is, the president's duty and job is to run the country for the people, run America's house for the people, and keep it open for the American people. And the core of it is we're supposed to have access to our leaders. That's why we don't have royalty or a king here. But what he's done is he's done the complete opposite of that. And basically what he said is, I'm going to try to make the sequester as painful as possible for Americans who would actually like to be, maybe the lifetime for a kid is to go to the White House and see the White House. And the president is obviously, and his staff have obviously said, let's make this as painful and political as we possibly can to hurt people. Meanwhile, his own kids are on spring break, their third vacation of the year, Hawaii first, Aspen, Colorado second, and now they're in the Bahamas. So they're not being affected by this. I think it's incredibly selfish, but also I think it's really childish by the President of the United States of America to do this. Okay,
Abby Huntsman, there was a time last year when your family could have been at the White House. You were running your father for the presidency. Has he got a point, Ben Ferguson? I find myself in the unusual position of nodding through most of what he just said.
Well, I don't think it's fair to point fingers necessarily at the Obama girls. I'm sure I probably would have taken a vacation once or twice in the year that my dad were president. Look, we are increasingly living in a garrison state. I think we have to look at the bigger picture here. How much are we spending on travel? How much are we spending on security? I mean, look at Vice President Biden's trip alone. He spent one night in Paris. I think it was nearly $600,000. So you have to say, this is crazy. Like, how much are we spending on all of this? And at the same time, we're not allowing White House tours. So I think the bigger the entourage you have and the more you're spending on travel, the less, I guess, the more out of touch our elected officials are with the American people. It's exactly why we need these White House tours. I do agree with Ben, though, that it's these White House tours that keep the American people in touch with their elected officials.
Well, it's the American people's house. It's their property. They pay for this. It's not Barack Obama's personal home. Marjorie Clifton, I mean, it seems to me that it dropped a clang here. It looks like the president's chucking toys out of a pram here, punishing ordinary Americans from seeing this great house, this great, wonderful home of the president, for the sake of what? 74 grand a week. I mean, it's a pointless point-scoring exercise, isn't it?
Well, this pretty harsh words about him being mean to children. But I think we have to look at what the sequestration's about. And it was about cutting non-critical activities by the federal government. And look, every time any president's in office, there's a lot of scrutiny on both sides of the aisle about what's critical and what's not critical. And, while I'd like to think going to peek at the First Lady's China pattern is a critical activity to a lot of people, truly what visiting the White House is about is sort of the ambiance and seeing what it's about. But they did actually keep the Capitol tours open. And if you look at what's an actual civic activity, what engages people, what provides transparency, that is actually an opportunity where you do see how Congress works and you can actually see things live and in person. When you go to visit the White House, nobody's there.
Yeah, hang on.
Piers, here's the thing.
Ben, let me just say something. I have actually got a solution here.
What's that?
The solution is this. American people would, I'm sure, be quite happy to pay $5 each to go and see the White House. Why stop the access?
Absolutely.
If the point is financial,
but here's the thing. We've already paid
$5 throughout the period of the sequester. Problem over.
But
there you go.
Right, but Piers, here's the issue. We've already paid for the White House and his staff and the vacations and everything there. It is something that we're paying for. The fact that we even have to mention adding another $5 in there is the insanity of this whole entire issue. We're the United States of America. We're not poor. And this president has had no problem spending money. $6 trillion that he's added in debt. We can afford the White House being open.
Are you telling me that President George Bush never took vacation? I'm pretty
exactly the point I was about to make.
I think
I'm saying the President of the United States of America, George Bush, ma'am, President George W. Bush never closed down the White House to use it as a political way to score points with the American people. That's wrong.
Ben, you're getting way off topic. I think we need to get back to the bigger picture here. And where are we spending where it actually makes sense? I mean, we're talking about these huge entourages.
Yeah, but here's the reality, Abby. What's going to happen is that the real threat of the sequester has yet to kick in. You know, in a month's time, when the TSA will walk out and suddenly no one can fly in America, there's going to be a lot of real anger on the ground. What I don't like about this is it's so petty. And the point you made about George Bush is absolutely right. George Bush had far more holiday than Barack Obama has ever had, including his family. So, Ben Ferguson, when it comes to the holiday part, you lose me. But if you stick to the White House,
here's what I'm saying. My point is this. Hold on, listen to me carefully, because this is my point. If we are really in such bad issues with our debt that we're stopping White House tours, then I think the President of the United States of America should look at his own travel budget if it really is that bad. And the point is, it is not that bad. He's doing it on purpose, and he can still go on vacations, and so can Biden at $500,000 a night in Paris, because we do have the money. This is not about us not having the money. It's about them wanting to hurt people, and that's a problem.
Okay, listen, we've got to leave it there. We're going to take a short break, calm down, and come back, and well, let's get all excited about DOMA, which may be disappearing. Wouldn't that be a tragedy for America if that ridiculous act disappeared? We'll come back after the break and discuss that. Back now, my all-star panel, Abby Husband and Ben Ferguson and Marjorie Clifton. So I want to play an extraordinary bit of television history. This is Bill O'Reilly, the king, self-appointed king of cable news, saying this.
The compelling argument is on the side of homosexuals. That's where the compelling argument is. We're Americans. We just want to be treated like everybody else. That is a compelling argument. And to deny that, you got to have a very strong argument on the other side.
And the argument
on the other side hasn't been able to do anything but thump the Bible. I support civil unions. I always have. All right? And the gay marriage thing, I don't feel that strongly about it one way or the other.
But then
I
you
think
leave it to the states.
I think the states should do it.
Ben Ferguson, will you always remember where you were when Bill O'Reilly publicly supported gay rights in this extraordinary manner?
You know, there's a lot of people like myself that support civil unions, and I think the interesting part about this argument is there are so many people now that are on the pro-gay marriage side that have been brilliantly making this argument that if you're against them, you're automatically a bigot, you're a homophobe, you are some sort of anti-civil rights human being. And I think there's a lot of conservatives like myself that are in favor of civil unions.
Ben, are you married?
But they also are very clear.
Ben,
yes, I am. Let me finish this real quick.
But why did you not?
Hold on, let me finish real quick. Let me finish this real quick. There are a lot of conservatives like myself that are very clear on one issue. Marriage has been defined between one man and one woman. And once you redefine it, where do you stop redefining it? Because we all know the Supreme Court looked at this today. If we redefine it now, when the next group of people want to redefine it, then what does marriage become? And that's the reason why I'm in favor of civil unions. I'm not in favor of redefining marriage outside of one man and one woman.
I just want to ask Ben, you're married. Why did you not just get a civil union then?
Because I believe that marriage and the sanctity of marriage and what it represents was important for me and for what I believe in and the history of marriage. There's also a religious background around marriage, and I'm not going to shy away from that. But again, there are a lot of people that get married, and there's 43 states that have decided this. And even a liberal state like California, for example, they voted to define marriage between one man and one woman. I'm not in the minority, but a lot of us have been bullied.
Ben, actually, you are in the minority because the latest polls show that over 50% of Americans now support same-sex marriage. You are, whether you like it or not, in an increasing and very rapidly moving minority.
And I think, Piers,
Piers, I would say this.
Okay, well, Ben, just respond to that point first.
If somebody calls you as a pollster and asks you a question about gay marriage, you do not want to be a bigot or offend somebody over the phone. But when people walk into a voting booth and they can vote their conscience, including California, they overwhelmingly have supported in 43 states marriage being defined between one man and one woman. That's the truth.
Let me bring in Marjorie.
And I think Ben brings up an important thing about, you know, I want to uphold history. And unfortunately, I think what will happen was you will be on the wrong side of history, because there is what a lot of people are talking about is the inevitability of this. And I was actually on Capitol Hill yesterday walking in front of the Supreme Court, and I have to tell you, if you just look at the audience standing out there, there are so few people that are there fighting this. There's actually so many people who are in support of, you know, the idea of marriage being redefined. And if you look at even the religious groups that have come out in support, and you look at who's talking about this, and it's Bill O'Reilly, case in point, and you know, even the Pentagon came out and made rights for same-sex marriages. And right now, the onus is, I think, on Congress, and it's also on the Supreme Court in terms of definition. But either way, it's either by the state or it's going to be federal.
Okay, final word with Abby. I mean, could you imagine a situation in 2016 where the Republican candidate who takes on whoever the Democratic candidate is would be anti-same-sex marriage?
Absolutely. I mean, we have seen this issue evolve very quickly over the past 10 years. Marjorie mentioned the public support for it. We see, especially the young generation, the millennials, 18 to 29, I think it's 81% now support gay marriage. More than 50% of the country now supports gay marriage. That's just where we're at.
No, what I meant was, could you imagine a Republican candidate who didn't support same-sex marriage in 2016?
It would be, I don't think they could actually win a general election, is my answer to that. And so I would say to Ben,
I disagree.
Ben, you might disagree, and I'm sure that you will.
Ben,
but I would
Ben, I'm going to leave you with the words, I disagree, and we will bring you back another time to continue disagreeing with almost everybody we put you on with. But I've got to leave it there for now. Thank you, Marjorie. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Abby. I like this panel. This works for me.